Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. Now this video is called the 5 most important things to consider when buying a VW camper van. Now I actually did a video about 2 years ago called 10 things that you must consider when buying a VW camper van, but things have moved on quite a lot in the past couple of years. We've worked with a lot more customers, we've sold a lot more camper vans, and we've got to really know our customers a lot more over the past couple of years, and we know exactly what people are looking for, but most importantly we also know what questions our customers have when they're in the research process of buying a VW camper van. So depending on how far down the rabbit hole you are with your research into VW campers, you probably started to realize that it's a bit of a minefield, and there are lots and lots of different choices and options out there, which really does all depend on the kind of budget that you've got for a VW camper. So if you are new to this channel and you've not watched any of my videos before, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, because I do share a lot of content on YouTube answering questions that we get on a regular basis from our subscribers and from our customers. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if any questions do come up as I'm going through this video, make sure you put them in the comment section below and we will get back to you as quickly as we can to answer your questions. And also make sure you hang around until the end of this video, because all 5 things that I'm going to cover in this video are really important, and you really do need to think about these things and really work out the best route for you. Okay, so make sure you hang around until the end, and I'm going to get started now on my first point. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the most important thing, because everything else doesn't really matter until you've worked this part of it out, and that is the overall budget that you've got for a camper. And VW campers are just like most things in life. It all comes down to how much budget you have for something, or how much money you're willing to pay for a certain product or service. And this is especially true with VW campers. You've probably noticed that the price tags are quite high on VW campers in particular compared to other brands of camper van. And that's down to a number of reasons, mainly because VW as a brand just commands more money and there's more demand for those particular vans, and that pushes the price up. But also down to the quality of the vehicles as well. Now, we only work on VW transporters. We don't convert any other brand of van. We decided to do that right from the start, purely because we know that the demand is always there, and the quality of the base vehicle, like I say, is normally better than most other vehicles out there. So when it comes to us working with a customer, the first thing we ask them is, what is your overall budget? And the reason we ask that question is because that really helps us to work out the best way forward for you in terms of getting the best possible camper van that ticks the right boxes for you for the right price. So once we know what your budget is and what you can push that to, we can then kind of reverse engineer the process and work out which base vehicle is going to be the right base vehicle, and what kind of age and mileage is realistic, and then we can then start looking at the conversion itself. So the budget really depends on the base vehicle and how old that particular van is. Okay, so if you have a budget of under £50,000, then that is going to require you to have a slightly older vehicle with a few more miles on the clock. Now, most customers that buy our vans are in the market for a fairly new base vehicle, usually anywhere between 12 months and 2 years. Sometimes we do get delivery mile vans in, so we get nearly new vans in, but that tends to be the kind of base vehicle that our customers are looking for. And if you do want a van that's kind of a 22, 23 plate, and you want a brand new conversion, then you are going to be looking at very late 50,000s and as high as into the 70,000s. But it really does all depend, like I say, on the base vehicle spec and the model of that van. Now, of course, the more budget that you've got, the more boxes you can have ticked. Okay, so if you're going to be very specific, very particular about the type of camper you want, and you want a particular colour, you want very, very low miles, so I'm talking under 10,000 miles, and you want a Highline, and you want an automatic, and you want a tailgate, and you want all those boxes ticking, and then you also want that brand new conversion, then a realistic budget is going to be early to mid 60s, possibly a little bit more. But if your budget is £50,000 or under, there will be sacrifices that do need to be made, and that will be on the base vehicle itself in terms of mileage and the age of the actual van itself. And I have covered this topic quite a lot in other videos in the channel, so make sure you check out my other videos. But the reality is, if you do want a nearly new van with low miles and a high spec, then you are going to be looking at those kind of numbers. So the first thing to think about is really how much budget can you allocate to a camper. Of course, you do have to be careful with the money side of things. You don't want to push yourself too far and overextend yourself, but at the same time, it does pay to try and maximize the amount of budget that you allocate, because that's going to give you the best possible end result in terms of being really happy with the camper that you drive away in. Okay, so once you've come to a decision on the budget side of things, the second thing that you need to kind of start thinking about is the model of the base van that you want, and also the colour. And I have also done a video talking specifically about the different colour options of VW campers. So I will put a link up here somewhere to that video that I did on your colour choices. So make sure you check that one out. But the colour of the van that you want does come into the end price of the camper, because certain colours do command more money when you go to buy the base vehicle. Because certain colours are more popular than others, but also there are just more of certain colours. So that does come into the overall price of the camper. So what I advise all of our customers to do is really trying to eliminate the colours that you do not really want, so the colours that you would not accept, and try and be a little bit flexible on the colour, because the more specific you are about the colour of the camper you want, the less base vehicles there are going to be available. And like I say, that will come into the final price of the camper as well. So for example, if you only wanted an Indian grey van and you wouldn't accept any other colour, and it had to be a Highline and it had to have a tailgate, then of course that's going to reduce the size of the availability of that particular van, which is going to make it harder to find that particular van or camper, and it's also probably going to push the price up a little bit. So the more flexible you can be on the colour, the better really. Now in terms of the model of the van, there are four main models of Transporter. There is the Start line, which is the bog standard van, which doesn't come with alloys, it doesn't come with colour coded bumpers. Some of them don't have air conditioning, so they are very, very basic vans. The second one is a Trend line, which has slightly more trim and a few other extras. And then you jump up to the Highline spec, which is what most of our customers are looking for. We only ever really buy Highline vans because the spec on those vans matches very closely to a lot of cars. So you get things like adaptive cruise control and air conditioning and electric folding mirrors and all the little kind of mod cons that you get on a car. So most people do want Highlines. But if you do want to keep your costs low but still be in a sort of a slightly younger vehicle, then going for a Start line with maybe a business pack on it, which gives you a few other extras on it, that would be another option for you, because that will reduce the price of the camper quite a bit, probably £4,000 or £5,000 if you go for a slightly lower model in the range. So colour is really important. So what I would do is sit down with a pen and paper and just go through the different colours and work out which ones that you definitely don't want. So that might be red or it might be blue, and then just try and be as flexible as you can with the colours and do your research. But like I say, check out my video on colour options on VW Transporters. Okay, so the third thing that you need to think about, which we get asked about a lot, we get asked about this particular topic literally on a daily basis, and that is, do you go for a rock and roll bed like this one here, or do you go for a rib bed setup? So I'm going to just quickly run through the differences between the rock and roll bed and the rib bed. And as I'm going through this, I will put some video content up of a rib bed setup as well as a rock and roll, just so you can see the differences between the two. With a rock and roll bed, you are essentially sitting on the same side or same side of the cushions that you sleep on. So this just basically lies flat, then you put a mattress on top of it and you're just sleeping on the same side. With a rib bed, these cushions actually flip over, so you're actually sitting on a different side that you actually lie on. And the cushions that we use on our rock and roll beds are quite thick. We use really good quality cushions, so they are really comfy to sit on and also sleep on. But a lot of people do say they prefer the rib bed just because the cushions are quite a lot thicker, and you do have an indentation in the seat as well, so it's a little bit more comfortable to sit in. And people do swear by rib beds, and a lot of people will only accept a rib bed. They wouldn't even entertain a rock and roll bed. But it really is horses for courses. It's down to personal taste. So the actual design of the bed is different, so the way that it collapses and the way that you kind of turn it into a bed changes between the two. That's one of the differences. The other difference with a rock and roll bed is that they are fixed into the van, right to the rear of the van. So when you open the boot up, the back of the rock and roll bed goes right to the back of the van, but you do have a nice big storage space underneath the rock and roll bed for, for storing things as well. But the great thing about a rock and roll bed, and why I actually prefer them, is that because they are fixed further into the van, right to the back of the van, it does maximise the amount of space that you've got in the living area, because the bed's pushed as far back as it will go. So it gives you a nice amount of room in the front, in the actual living area. Whereas with a rib bed, they are fixed into the van a little bit further forward. So you do lose nearly a foot of space inside the actual living area. But then what people really like about the rib bed is that you do then gain that space in the back of the van. So you'll see from the pictures on the screen now that you get a nice boot space at the back, which does allow you to store things. It gives you a lot more storage space, which a lot of people do prefer. So you may have seen some campers with like rails on the floor, so you can actually slide the bed up and down the van. So that is an option on the rib bed setup, but unfortunately those rail systems are really, really expensive. They're about £3,000 extra to have the rail system put in. So that is an extra that we can offer to our customers if they do want a rib bed with sliders, but that does increase the overall cost of the camper. So on the rock and roll bed setup like this one, there isn't an option to have those rails in the van, so you can't move a rock and roll bed up and down the van. That's just not an option, but you can on the rib bed. And the reason that we put rock and roll beds into most of our campers is just because we feel it maximizes the space and it also keeps the overall cost of the camper down. But if you do choose to use our source and convert service and you're specking one of our vans from scratch, then of course you can choose the rib bed setup. But just know that it does cost a little bit more, especially if you want the rib bed to be upholstered like we do with all of our rock and roll beds. So the rib bed versus rock and roll bed is a topic that comes up a lot. It's a question that people ask us on a regular basis, and it's a really important thing to think about if you are considering getting a VW camper. Just do your research and work out which one's going to work best for you on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so the fourth thing that you need to think about, which is something that a lot of newbies don't really think about because it's just another thing to kind of consider, and that is whether you have a single passenger seat or whether you have a double passenger seat. Now, nearly all VW transporters that have come off the production line have a double passenger seat as standard because ultimately they've been manufactured as a van, as a commercial vehicle. So I would say probably 90% of the vans that we see, even nearly new vans, have a double passenger seat as standard. Now, there are pros and cons to a double and to a single, so I'm just going to quickly run through the pros and cons to both. And then as I'm talking about that, I'll put some examples on the screen of a double passenger seat and also a single. So the main benefit of having a double passenger seat, of course, is that you do have extra capacity. You can have more people in the van. So you can have 3 people in the front and you can have 2 people in the back of the van. Whereas if you have a single passenger seat, obviously that reduces the capacity by 1 person. So that might be something that you do need to consider depending on how many people you are planning to travel with. Now, another benefit of a double passenger seat is that you can actually use that as storage space because the double passenger seat cushion does actually lift up and you can use the space inside the seat as a storage solution. So this is quite a big benefit because it gives you that extra bit of storage space if you've got a double passenger seat. Now, the third pro to having a double passenger seat is the fact that when we fit a swivel to a double, we use a sliding mechanism. Okay, so that means that you can swivel the seat round, but you can also slide the seat right out into the van and pull it right up to the table so that you can all sit close together around the table in the back. But on the single seat, although you do get a swivel on that, it doesn't have a sliding mechanism. So the single seat is still fixed right to the front of the van, but it's swiveled round. So some people really like the idea of being able to slide that seat right out into the van so that you can all sit together. So that really is something important to consider when you are choosing between a single or a double seat. So there are 2 real main benefits of having a single passenger seat as opposed to a double. And the first pro is that because you've got a gap between the single passenger seat and the driver's seat, you've got quite a big gap there. It means you can actually get into the back of the van without actually getting out of the van. So in the UK, when the weather's bad quite a lot of the time and it's thrown it down with rain or wind outside, it means you don't have to get out to get into the back of the van. You can slide between the 2 seats and have that access, which is a really big benefit to a lot of people, and they do like a single seat for that reason. But I think the main reason that most people go for a single passenger seat is because they say it's a lot more comfortable than a double. Because the double seat, when it's got a swivel mechanism on it, it is quite elevated. You are quite high up. So if you're quite a tall person, then your head does get quite near to the roof. Whereas a single seat is slightly lower. And they are just a bit more comfortable to sit in because with a single captain passenger seat you've got the armrests on the side and they're just a bit more comfortable on long journeys. So I think that's probably the main reason that a lot of our customers ask us to take the double passenger seat out and replace it with a single. But the con to doing that is that single seats do cost quite a lot because a lot of people are taking the doubles out and replacing them with the single, so that pushes the cost of the single seats up. So if the van that you've bought to be converted by us, or if you chose one of our vehicles that's got a double passenger seat, we can replace that with a single, but just be aware that it's about £1,200 plus VAT for us to replace a double for a single. Okay, so the fifth and final point that I want to talk about is whether you go and actually buy your own VW Transporter base vehicle. You go and source the van yourself, you go and buy the van, and then you take it to a conversion company like us, or whether you go to a conversion company who offers a sourcing service whereby they will actually go and find the right base vehicle for you based on your budget and spec, and then work with you to convert that into your dream camper. So this really depends on how involved you want to be in the process, because some of our customers don't mind doing that side of it. They're used to buying vehicles and they're comfortable with doing that, and they want to go off to VW and find a base van, go and buy that, go and purchase that vehicle, and then bring it to a conversion company. So that's your first option. But the second option is that you get some help from a company who will help you actually source the base vehicle and deal with the whole sales process. And about 90% of our customers do use our VW approved source and convert service because they just don't know what they're looking for. They're worried about choosing the right type of van. They don't want to deal with all the sales process and working out all the logistics and getting delivery and all that kind of thing, because it is a bit of a chore, especially if you're not used to buying vehicles. And because we buy so many vans, we're buying between 50 and 70 vans a year, and we have some very, very good contacts at VW that we deal with literally on a monthly basis. We're able to get fairly good prices on vans. We're able to get hold of stock that's not available to the public, and we do all the sourcing and finding the right vehicle for you. So that is the most popular option with our customers. And I actually recorded a video about 2 or 3 weeks ago called Why 90% of our customers Use Our Source and Convert service. So I'm going to put a link up here somewhere to that video. That's definitely worth checking out, because I talk through the 3 main options that you've got when it comes to getting a VW camper. Obviously, one is that you go and buy a completed camper van ready to go, or you go and buy your own base vehicle and take it to a conversion company, or you use a source and convert service. So make sure you do check out that video above, because I do talk through all of these options in a lot more detail. Okay, so that's my 5 most important things that you need to consider when you are buying a VW camper van. If you've got any questions about any part of this video, anything that I've covered, please do put them in the comment section below, and I will personally get back to you. I will reply to you personally to answer your questions. And if you'd like to speak to me on the phone and get any of your questions answered and just find out more about some of the things that I've covered, you can book a call with me in my calendar. If you just go to our website, which is highlifecampers.co.uk, go to the contact page and you'll be able to schedule a call in my calendar there, and I will give you a call for a chat. And also, if you haven't already downloaded our 2 guides, we've got our VW Camper Buyer's Guide, which you can see here, and that's where we talk through the whole process of buying a VW camper if you are completely new to this. So I'll put a link to that guide just below this video in the description below. And then we've also got our conversion spec guide, where we outline all 4 of our conversion packages, all the features in each of those packages, plus the prices as well. So I will put a link to the conversion spec guide in the description below as well, and you can get both of those guides on the homepage of our website. Okay, so that's it for this video. I really hope you've got value from this, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you do that, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you've got value from this video, please also consider hitting that like button. It really helps to support the channel, and please feel free to share this video with any of your friends if you think they will get benefit from it, and I will see you in the next video. Speak soon.